Oh, sorry. We're on. It's a week later and I'm still completely engrossed in everything Spurs. We're still European champions. It hasn't quite sunk in, but we're back. We're back for a special show. It's that time of year that students hate. It's that time of year that the Spurs players should be nervous about. It is the end of season report here on An Echo of Glory, and here to talk me through it, Adam Nathan. Hello.
How are you?
All right. How are you?
Buzzing.
Still buzzing.
It's great.
Still buzzing. And for the first time in just over a week, he's fully clothed. It's Jake Saunders. Hello.
How you doing?
All right. How are you?
I got Europa League come down.
You have been topless for a week.
Surprised.
We saw you in the stadium on the night, topless. And then what do I see on my, I say in the WhatsApps, on the photos, you standing on were you on a bus stop or what?
The roof.
You're on the roof?
Shop roof.
Opposite the stage? And at the
I think it was the one down from the Caribbean restaurant, if anyone knows it.
Yeah.
One to the left of that.
Yeah.
I think the owner was a bit twitchy at one point when there was 500 people on his roof. And some people started to come down, but...
Have you come down yet?
Yeah, with illness.
Yeah.
But got to make the most of it, haven't you?
Okay.
I think you've probably done that, to be fair.
I've done.
So as we record this, about a week and a day after becoming the glorious European champions, we're going to go through the season as we did last season. We're going to rate every player. Difficult one, because like we've said throughout the season, it's either going through one door and through another. We've gone through a door, which might change some of our ratings. God knows what the ratings would have been if we'd lost that final last week. But we didn't.
Or if we'd lost the quarterfinals,
It
it would have been horrendous.
Probably wouldn't have done it, to be honest. So we'll do it. I've got buttons to press, which in the past has ended in disaster, including one this season where I took us off air. So who knows what's going to happen. I'm going to start by pressing this button. That works. If you are listening to the show, this show will be just as good, but it's also a nice visual because we're going to put up images of the players and their grades, and we're going to have a chat about how we think they did. Maybe should we move them on? Should we keep them? That sort of stuff. But I also want you to start thinking about, while we're doing this, maybe your best performance of the season by an individual, your best performance as a team, your best result. So we'll come to a bit of that as well. Don't want to throw you under the bus in like 20 minutes when I ask you that. But we'll start, as we should do, in goal. I'm going to press this button and hopefully Vicario's face will pop up. Look at that. It's all going so swimmingly.
1 out of 1.
1 out of 1. So I'm going to start with you, Ad. Give us your grades. Talk about him. You know, I know you've got probably some things to say on Lloris, which you've said before, and he's the man who came in to replace Lloris. So grade him for us once you as well. A+ all the way down to D-.
Okay, so I'm going to try and do all of my grades based on this, right? Tottenham sacked the league season off after Ipswich. So I'm going to try and ignore every league game from Man City till the end of the season. And I'm going to do all my ratings on games that Tottenham actually tried in. So the league until February, and then Europe from February.
Okay.
Because to give people, like the Wolves game, for example, and Fulham and Chelsea was so bad but there was no intention to win them in the first place, really.
Yeah.
So it kind of feels a bit trite to include those as like a ranking. So I'm going to give Vicario an A- off the back of that, because he was very good up until his injury. Everyone was gutted when he got that injury against Man City.
Yep.
And then his first league game back was Man United, I think. And then Ipswich was after that. And then it was the Europa League. And he's been...
almost faultless.
Pretty faultless.
Well, apart from heading the ball to
cheers, Micky.
Hoyland.
Yeah, I mean, that was mad. Like, it wasn't just a gaff, that. To go through his hands and head it to Hoyland. Like, he's a bit of he's always reminded me of Gomez, the way he plays.
Yeah, I know.
Like, he's very, like, limmy. He doesn't look like anything he does is natural. Like, nothing's, the hip bone's not connected to the
thigh bone.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem to work with him. It just the way in which he plays has always reminded me of Gomez.
You said before on this show that you like his leadership more. Like, we had Lloris for 11 years, but it didn't feel like you ever warmed to Lloris.
Not particularly. He wears his heart on his sleeve. The fact his parents are always there. And there was this bloke on the pitch on Sunday who looked like a fan that had invaded the pitch. He was just stumbling around, and I realised that was Vicario's dad 5 minutes later. So
he's really engrossed himself.
Yeah, he has, and he clearly cares. And fans don't need a lot to be taken in by a player, and the fact that he clearly wants to be here, I find that quite endearing. So I'm going to give him a better mark than I expected to give anyone already.
Okay.
So there you go.
Okay. Jake Saunders.
I agree with all of that.
You agree with all?
I think one thing that really stuck with me was, I don't know if you saw a little documentary that the club made when he just came back.
Yes.
In the week,
Yes.
and they spoke about the Man City game, and he knew that he had a broken foot, was it, or ankle? Was it broken ankle or fracture? And he played the whole second half at City, and I remember him making a really, really good save from Haaland, a few other good saves, and kept a clean sheet. And I know a lot of players, I know it's different with a keeper, but I know a lot of players that wouldn't have done that, especially someone like Lloris maybe. And it really, that really stuck with me. And also, what stuck with me is that the celebration after we beat Sheffield United last year was amazing. I know this is completely off top. He ran the whole length of the pitch, and he was almost in the crowd. And from that moment on, I thought he really, really gets it. And I know, like, he gets it is thrown around a lot nowadays, but it feels like Vicario really does. He really, even some of his social media posts in the last few weeks, he really seems to, understand Tottenham very, very quickly.
Yeah, that's massive. And I think that's massive. I think the leadership appointment sort of helped you. Suddenly, your chest comes out and you become part of it. I'm going to give him a B+ because I've done that wrong already. Fucked that up. Because I can't
A++.
I can't forget.
That is nice of you.
I can't forget. There it is. I can't forget the drop in the final.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's meaningless.
No, but I think there's been a few. I think he needs to improve, and I think if he improves, he gets my A- next season. I think absolutely he is a great shot stopper. I think you've got to be a little bit more than that now. I think he's improved with his feet, and he's better with his feet than Lloris was. And I think they're working on it. The whole crowding around the corners. But it
wasn't as big of a talking point.
It wasn't.
No.
I remember that Everton away game last season?
That was like the pinnacle of it being
and
really
the City
bad.
game in the Cup when Ake scored. And I remember thinking, this is an issue. Didn't really get spoken about this season much. I know there was that one, which I think you touched on previously, the Gabriel goal against Arsenal. You just got to come for it. Like, simple as that. And I know there was maybe one against Forest. But he generally seemed a little bit braver from set pieces this season.
That's why he gets a B for me. All right. There's a lot to talk about, I think, of the players in front of him. And we're going to start with this guy, Pedro Porro, Mr. Consistent. I do have some stats here that I need to bring up because he played, I believe, more than anybody else.
He played 50-odd games, didn't he?
Yeah. 50, Sarr played more. 51 games, Pedro Porro. Mr. Consistent. Jake, I'll start with you.
It's a bit of a weird one, Porro, because there was that period from, what was it, sort of November, December, and he didn't come out the side, but there was a few games. I remember Bournemouth and maybe one other game, and a lot of people, and Spence sort of came in and played against Southampton around that time, and a lot of people were begging for Porro to be dropped. I thought he was treated a little bit harshly, but he was also knackered by that point, and it was when we were conceding goals for absolute fun, and the league form was just an absolute joke, and the schedule was a joke. But I think since February, even in the Premier League, I think he's been really, really consistent and good and exceptional in Europe. He was so good in the last 5 European games.
Faultless.
He scored 2, did he?
Scored a big goal against
Frankfurt. Scored he sealed it against Bodo Glimt.
Yeah.
And we know his defending's not the best, but I still think outside of Trent, his final, his output in the final third is the best in the league, apart from Trent from a fullback. I don't think there's a better crosser of a ball in the league in terms of a fullback. He did one in the final in the first 5 minutes, which has probably not been mentioned. Amazing ball.
Yeah.
I think it was Richarlison at the far post. Yeah. And his numbers are great. I think I don't know exactly what they are, but like he's been at Spurs for 2.5 years and he must have been involved in 30, 35 goals. He's regularly around 5 goals and sort of 8 to 10 assists.
So his Tottenham career, Jake, 105 appearances, 11 goals, 20 assists.
That is exceptionally
31
good.
Goal contributions.
We've got wingers that don't have numbers as good as that. Seriously.
Yeah. Brian Gill hasn't scored a goal for Tottenham yet.
No.
But even like Brennan Johnson last year, I know this year, but I don't know if Brennan Johnson had, that many goals and assists last year. I've always been a big fan of him. I know his defending's not great, and I know there was that goal against Bournemouth, which was absolutely shocking, where he gave it away for the first Bournemouth goal. And I know he can be a bit silly in possession at times, but I think in the right system, when he's not inverted, I still think he's a really, really, really quality fullback.
What's your grade?
I'll give him a
hovering
B
over A.
plus.
I was hovering over A minus B plus. It's a B
I
plus.
feel a bit bad now. He's probably been better than Vicario, but
It's a B plus. Adam, give us your grade and then tell us why.
I was going to save you a click because I was going to stick with B plus.
All right.
You know, the less you have to do with this machine, probably the better.
Clearly the better. My grade's going to be different, so I'm going to have to press something.
Yeah, I think the defending. Look, the hot spot for Tottenham to concede goals has been in that sort of inside
Correct.
right back position.
I think, and teams know that.
Teams know that,
Yeah.
but I do think that the lack of tracking that our wingers do it massively contributes to that. And you know, often it's not the right back's fault that you can see them in the right back area because they're tucking in. You know, everyone's moving across, and you expect the winger to come back. And not that I ever watch anything Arsenal do with particular admiration, but the amount of time that Saka and Martinelli get behind the ball to help the fullback is markedly different to how our fullbacks play. I thought it was laughable that Spence wouldn't play the Frankfurt game at right back. I thought it was just fait accompli that him and Udogie would be the fullbacks. But Porro came in, fair play, you can't argue with it. I thought it was great. And yeah, take out the sort of redacted league games that I don't care about. I think Porro had a very good season.
I think I'm going to give him an A plus because
A plus?
Yeah, sorry, yeah, I am. I'll tell you why. Because I think availability is the best ability.
Yeah.
I think in a season of players just disappearing,
he was
always there, always gives 100%. I feel like I never got an A plus in anything at school, but in your school report, it's like achieved what he set out to achieve, did everything to the level that he wanted to be at, and I just feel that's Porro. Okay, it maybe should be an A minus, but I know I said on the show last week that Solanke would be my player of the season. This guy just gives everything, and he has faults and he has limits. It's kind of, I don't think the system helps him. We've talked about that. He doesn't get helped by his fullbacks. Yeah. And I'd be really sad if he was one of the players to leave. I'm not saying he's going to leave, but I just feel that he gave everything and his
attitude's great, isn't it?
His attitude's great.
He never stops. He never has any issue. You know,
and he was on top form on that stage in the. So maybe that's part of it. You know, give them a rating based on how they were on their stage. Yeah, it might be controversial, but that's my thoughts on Pedro Porro. I'm going to press this button and hopefully it works. It does. Look at that. Who should we do next? Next to him, right hand side of the centre halves, is Cristian Romero. And Adam, because you've basically biffed off most of the games this season, that plays right into the hands of Cristian Romero.
Yeah, in the one game that Romero played that counts. B, because I thought he started he starts the season dreadfully. I don't think he came back fit after the Copa America they had at Argentina, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Don't think he came back fit.
Yeah.
Cost us a load of goals in the first 5-6 games of the season. And this will probably dictate quite a few of my ratings today. I have a pretty low tolerance level for muscle injuries that players get. I just find there's part of me that thinks that just shouldn't happen. And it must be, is there something with your lifestyle? When it continues to happen and you have similar injuries over and over again, I just find that unbelievably frustrating. And best ability is your availability and stuff like that. And he missed so many games that he was imperious in Europe. And if you were grading him on Europe, it'd be A++, as many pluses as you can put in.
Don't make me press all those buttons.
I know, you'd be knackered. But I think you do have to take into account part of the other stuff, which he felt like he sort of lozzed it off even more than the rest of the team at times. So I think a B, which sort of spans his A++ games and his D games.
Do you think if you said to Romero at the start of the season, you're only going to play in the big games, you'd go, yeah, I'm cool with that?
Yeah, sure, we'd be delighted.
Yeah. So is it all, this is maybe controversial, but is it all about Cristian Romero? Cristian Romero will do what Cristian Romero kind of wants to do.
Yeah, he's probably got that mindset of he knows exactly how to comport himself for every game that we're playing, and that has a negative impact in the sense that he probably can't get himself going in the same way in the slightly smaller games, and that's when you do get the moments of madness. Because something you do need to note is that he very, very rarely has one of these flashpoints in a game that really matters. It's almost like he gets bored in some of these silly little games, or at the end of when he did Callum Wilson last year, beating Newcastle 4-1, probably just wants to get involved, just do something. So I do think his mindset fluctuates sort of positively and negatively based on the the game state. And in the final, he was
as Danny Kelly said on View from the Lane, which is another pod, a smaller pod. I've heard of it, but he said Romero was on the line between chaotic and serene, but he knew the line. He knew he was pushing Maguire's buttons, not for the first time.
But you never felt like he was going to go out, even in that game. Exactly, I know a lot of people, non-Spurs fans, were probably watching.
Exactly,
He's going to get
never
sent
thought
off
he was going to go out of control.
He had Maguire on absolute toast.
Yeah,
he knew exactly what he was doing. And there was one moment where he went down in the game. Romero went down in the game. Might have been in the last half an hour. I turned to my brother, I said, he is not injured one bit. He knew exactly what he was doing to just take the sting out of the game. He was not remotely injured.
And what about your thoughts over the season for him?
I'll give him a B+, just because the last 5 European games, he did start against Alkmaar, didn't he? The second leg.
I believe so, yeah.
He did. I just think that we all know what happened. The Arsenal goal, the Newcastle, the Brighton games. He was, as Ad says, he was giving goals away for fun, in the wrong place, positioning. He didn't look fit. He looked a bit all over the place, but he was so good in them 5 games, so good. And we hardly conceded a goal, did we? We conceded 2 goals, maybe 3 goals in 5 knockout games in Europe. And I've always been one to criticise him. I've never hugely warmed to him, just because the way he plays a bit, and the Argentina stuff, and he's missed so many games.
He's been here 4 years, Jake, and only in the last league game that he played, which was, I'm not even sure which was the last league game.
I think the last league game he played was Forest.
That was his 100th game, wasn't it?
Yes, he hasn't played in the Premier League since Wolves. No,
Forest. He played the first half against Forest.
That was his 100th game in 4 years.
So he's missed 50, 60 league games or something.
That's not on, really, is it?
And I've just never hugely warmed him, but I'd always stick by it. When his head's in the right place, and that kind of stage where he's played in the World Cup final, he's won Copa Americas. That is his stage, and he's reliable on that stage. And he was so good against Frankfurt. Bodo Glimt was a walk in the park for him both games. It was comfortable.
Did get the big assist, in fairness.
Yeah, he got that great assist. I think Frankfurt was possibly his best performance in a Tottenham shirt. I thought he was outstanding. And then in the final, he dealt him and dealt with Højlund so well. I just think...
Yeah, this is what I'm saying, that he clearly is a big game player. It's such a cliche, but he clearly is that big game player. And he is probably one of them who, like you, Ad, and maybe the club went, sod it. This is all eggs, one basket, and I'll be ready and I'll be there, and we'll win this Europa League. I agree with you. I'm gonna stick with a B+.
I feel like I've been harsh.
No, but I think you're right.
The problem is, it's easy to get carried away with what we've seen, but the first 10, 11 games, he was awful. Yeah, absolutely dreadful.
I know a lot of people who, had Danso started the final ahead of Romero, they wouldn't have been that upset.
No.
Yeah.
Wow. Name and shame.
I wouldn't dare.
You wouldn't dare.
But I think there are people that think, Romero slows the game down. He's a hothead. And it's not, I don't necessarily agree with it, but I do know people that would have thought, we'll be fine with Danso playing instead.
Okay. What about his partner in crime? Micky van der Ven. There he is. Smiling, so his hamstrings are absolutely fine. Adam Nathan.
Probably go B again, just because of the volume of games that he's missed.
22 appearances this season.
Yeah, I mean, it's not... That's ridiculous. Is that in all competitions?
All competitions. Out of 50?
So we played, 38 league games, 16-ish Europa games. We must have played 60 games.
We must have played 60 games.
2 in the FA Cup, 5 in the league.
We played 38 plus 15 plus 7 plus 22, 60 games.
So you can't...
Third of the season.
Yeah. A B sort of is the maximum you can be, I think, for that. And so, I'd give him a B again, which is actually reflective of how brilliant he was in the games where he was there and we needed him. Because, to play a third of the season, it's not great, really, is it?
He should never have played that City game in the League Cup when he got injured. I remember thinking that at the time.
All those games are just a blur to me.
I just vaguely remember him getting injured, thinking he shouldn't be playing it.
Is that when he got injured? Yes.
It was right. It was when we'd had a lot. I don't know if we'd just gone to Galatasaray. We'd had a load of games, and we had a massive month coming up with City and Chelsea. And
we'd lost at Palace.
He shouldn't have played that game.
We'd beaten Arsenal. We'd lost at Palace.
And the second injury, as we discussed off air, was that even his fault? Like, should he have been playing against Chelsea? Like,
I want to come to that. So, how are you rating him?
I feel like I've got to give him a B+ just because of that clearance in the final. I don't know if I can give him less than Romero, but yeah, the 20 games is if that was a not as popular player, you know, because everyone loves him, he'd be absolutely ridiculed. 20 games is appalling.
Yeah.
Richarlison must have had as many games as that.
Yeah, he probably did. I reckon Richarlison probably had. I mean, slightly different because Richarlison played in all the league games where Van der Ven and Romero just.
Richarlison also stat pads a little bit on
Completely
that
sacked
with
off the
substitute appearances. Richarlison in all competitions this season, 24.
Wow, that is amazing.
I'm going to give Micky van der Ven a B. Again, availability is the best ability, not his fault. You know, he's got a problem, which I hope they've solved. Again, if solved, not sold, don't want to sell him. If he'd played more, then yeah, he'd probably have a plus next to that. And then to complete the back four, it is Adam. Was it your player this season?
It was someone
Adam
I
Nathan's
offered
player
up
this
as a
season.
potential given his European performances.
Destiny Udogie. The fully tracksuited, not that involved in the celebrations, I felt. Destiny Udogie.
He's quite a cool customer.
Yeah, he was very much like just reserved on that.
He's a bit
on that
younger
parade.
as well. I don't know if that was.
Yeah.
You know, it's just sort of.
Yeah. Go on,
staying
Ad.
out of it.
I will give him a B+. Another one that probably didn't start the season as healthily as you'd have liked him to.
Yeah, had that operation, didn't he, back end of last season?
Yeah, and I think that did impact his league performance.
Yeah.
I don't think he had a particularly good start to the season. There were a number of people that thought that Spence was the better left back that we had going into the European sort of, the thick end of the European season. But I thought he was absolutely imperious.
Frankfurt away.
Unbelievable.
One of the best performances
Both against
by anyone.
Bodo. Like, Bodo had clearly never seen a player that was as physically dominant
Yeah.
as that. I mean, he was just running
Yes.
past them like they weren't even there.
Yes.
It was like watching someone in the playground who was 2 years above. It was a joke. And in the final, he dealt with Diallo moderately well first half, but he was the only one second half that was bringing the ball out and relieving the
Well,
pressure.
all of that,
Was that run to Solanke?
yeah.
Was
The
from
entire game, the entire second half of that final was down his side. In fact,
Yeah.
most of the game was played
Yeah, he was brilliant.
down that
He was
side.
under constant pressure for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was magnificent.
What about, we talk about Porro's numbers, I think, what did I say? 20 goal contributions in 100 odd,
30.
30, sorry, goal contributions in 100 odd games.
Doesn't get enough.
Udogie, no goals this season, but 2 goals, 4 assists in 66 games.
I think that, firstly, he doesn't cross the ball, really. Porro gets into that like inside right position, as I said, where Trent does. And, you know, he puts in balls. I don't know if I've ever really seen Udogie do
Doesn't
that.
cross much.
But secondly, I just don't think he's as technically as good as Porro, so he doesn't really try and do that. He got a few assists last season, you know, getting down the line and pulling them back. But I don't know. I mean, he's good enough to do that. He's technically sound, but and he does seem to get into a lot of attacking positions in the box.
Yep.
I can't remember any of them assists from this whole season.
Let's
but
see if you got one.
I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why he should do. He's technically good enough, and as I say,
one assist all season. I think you need more, especially in this system.
I don't think he's particularly helped by the wingers stay wide to create space for
Son
the
gets in
fullback
his way, don't he?
system. Like, I think his running style, and I'm not saying he's the same player, but his running style on the ball is not hugely dissimilar to the way Bale could just.
I was thinking that when you talked about that run against
yeah,
Bodo.
to just burst past players. And I actually think if he was given the outside channel to work on and just get past and get crosses in, that would suit him a lot more than sort of where he picks the ball up in kind of the corner of the box.
Yeah.
And he's not really sure, so he often sort of pops it off inside to a Maddison or out wide to Son. He doesn't actually get the chance to do that much creating, I don't think, even though the system is set up to make space for the fullbacks there.
Yeah. Jake, rate him, please.
B+.
B+. Yeah. I'm gonna go B-. I don't think. I'm not been a huge fan of him defensively. Like, he's lazy when it comes to blocking crosses, and this again is not his fault. There was a game early this season. That goal we scored against Chelsea, the famous Chelsea game when they beat us 4-1 in the end. That goal that we scored that was disallowed. He was key in that. Just a nice pass out to somebody. He was playing in that. He picked up the ball almost on the halfway line on the centre spot. There was a game this season where a couple of times he picked up the ball in an inverted position with his back to goal, and I was like, you can't do this. And that's not his fault. He's really a left-back, left-winger by trade, and he's picking up ball in places that he can't do. Yeah. And you mentioned Porro does it better. None of these are his fault. For me, you're absolutely bang on, Ad. He needs to be a touchline fullback.
He's a flyer.
He's a flyer, and I would give him probably a BB plus if I thought he was defensively better. And listen, he made some brilliant clearances against Bodo in the second leg, where he stood up. And a couple of crosses to the back post that he really dealt with. Porro may have been asleep for, but he was switched on and great. But I just think defensively he could be better, and I think the system needs to treat him better. And he needs to be a flyer. I absolutely agree with that. What about the defence as a whole? I'm going to bring up some numbers in a second, read them out. We had, we obviously had injuries in the final, but the forward players, if we'd have missed any of the four we've just talked about, and possibly the goalkeeper, but let's talk about the outfield players, that would have been a lot worse than missing. Not even in hindsight, I feel going into it, I was like, I'm not happy that Kulu, Maddison, Bergvall are out, but God, am I happy that his back four is intact.
In a big game, you need your back four,
yeah.
back five, every time. Definitely, I would have rather Romero and Van der Ven been fit than possibly any attacking player.
Yeah, I mean,
if we had Kane, it's different, but
it feels silly to say it the day after Parma put that performance in last night, but I think Chelsea was so much better than Betis, that was probably always going to happen. But in general, it's not creative players that win you finals.
Yeah.
I think when you're playing Betis and you're going to be on the front foot, you probably need Parma. But for us, it was...
The great teams, when they have their back five, you know, we've played against like good Arsenal teams, good Chelsea teams, good United teams, and they've got this one missing and that one missing. But if you have your back five there, Arsenal have been like that when they were moaning about all these injuries. Look what they did to Real Madrid without a striker because they had their back five there. Everyone was fit, and you know you always get a chance on a counter attack.
Yeah.
You always got some sort of attacking bit of magic, and it's no coincidence. Everyone's been going on and on and on about these injuries all season. It was two players. It was them two players. Van der Ven, Romero. You know, have made the whole back four better. Everyone's game has lifted, even the goalkeeper since they've been fit. Definitely.
So as a collective, the four of them, when they start together, this is Premier League only, because it was the only way I could run the numbers. It's under Postecoglou, so the last 2 seasons, they've only started 26 Premier League games together as a four.
Ridiculous.
That's mental.
And that started, obviously there's been games where, like that Chelsea game this season, where they've come off. But in terms of starting...
Bear in mind, I think, apart from Brentford away first game of the season where Emerson started, they all played the subsequent 9 games of the first 10 games.
Chelsea,
So the first 11 games.
Yeah.
So it's like 15 games together since that.
Yeah, so we've won 50. So
that's like 15 out of 66.
That's insane.
Yeah, we've won 15 of the 26 they've started. The 50 they haven't all started together, we've only won 16. In terms of averages, we concede 1.3 goals per game when they do play, 1.8 when they don't. Our win percentage is 57.7 when they start together, 32% when they don't, and 1.9 points per game.
Wait, we concede 1.8 when they don't play?
Yeah. So it's 2 goals a game by 1 a game. And the points per game is 1.9 instead of 1.1. So 1.1 is basically, 38 points a game, which is where we ended up. 1.9 is
72.
So
that is obviously slightly hinged by the fact that the first 10 games of last season were so good, but still since then.
If you sort of take a little bit off,
that is
65 points probably, which is where we probably expect us to be this season, where you would have accepted that and a Europa League run.
Well, that wouldn't have been far off the Champions League, would it? 65 points?
I think Newcastle lost and got
65, depending on your goal difference. Forest got 7. Was 7th with 65 points.
But what did 4th get?
4th got 69.
So you're
low.
Yeah. But okay, with you get 65 points and win the Europa League, which I think is where we all would have gone.
65 points is fine.
Yeah, we got 65 last year, did we? Or pretty much close
we
to
did.
it.
That is a crazy stat.
Yeah.
I don't like the fact, not just the fact that how well we do with them, but 26 games out of 76.
All starting together. I'm not going to bring them up on the screen, but little mentions for... I'll bring them up. We're not going to grade them officially, but little mentions for Jed Spence and Kevin Danso. Happy with those backups?
Yeah, I thought they both featured. And actually, when you compare them to the other backups, Dragusin and Davis, I thought had particularly poor seasons when called upon. I like Davis a lot as a bloke. He's been a great club guy. Last season filled in really well, but I thought he... particularly in the games we don't like to talk about recently, I think he's been abysmal.
Davies.
Yeah.
New contract, yes or no?
It's not going to move the needle for me either way.
I think keep him around.
You do?
He always fills in. I know he was poor at times.
Homegrown player as well.
He's
I think
he's
keep
earned
him in
himself a new contract.
Well, I think they might keep him and start ingratiating if he wants it into
the coaching role.
The coaching role.
Yeah, I don't think him being around is going to impact any business they would otherwise do. Although I thought that about Werner in the summer. So
I quite like having a few of them there. You know, we've only got 2 left from that sort of team now, and I'm not going to say he's proper Tottenham Davis, but he's been there, he's done it, he's been at the club a long time, and it's nice to have someone there. That's
Danso as a backup. I mean, great header in the final. What a brilliant header that was. And I'm not saying Dragusin couldn't have done that, but from what I've seen of the pair of them, I prefer Kevin Danso.
Yes, definitely.
He also was hung out to dry a bit, weren't he? He sort of came in those first few games, was good, then played alongside Davis in completely, mixed teams when we were sort of tossing it off.
Yeah.
And I really like him. I liked his response when he got asked about Arsenal in the post Europa League.
Did he say, "What do you think of Arsenal?"
He said, "I've just won the Europa League with Tottenham. I don't care about Arsenal."
It's a very odd question. Really odd.
I like him. He seems like a great bloke.
He went on Austrian TV last night. I think maybe they were showing the Europa League Conference League final, and he was a guest.
Yeah.
And he was wearing his medal. Yeah. I wouldn't take it off. It's like when you're a kid and you might have finished 3rd in the sack race. Talking of sack race, we'll talk about Ange later. In the egg and spoon race, and you wear your medal. All right. I want to ask you, best individual performance of the season from a player.
Defender?
No.
Or
any
anyone?
Any player.
Don't steal mine. I've got one. Don't steal mine.
I've got one too. Go, Jake Saunders.
I was potentially going to go, he's going to go Udogie v Frankfurt.
No, I'm not.
I'm going to go Maddison against Man City, just because there was a lot of talk about him at that time.
Great shout.
I think he'd lost his place in the team, and I don't think he started the week before against
No, I don't think he did.
Ipswich or Villa. And as you know, I'm a massive Maddison fan.
Yeah.
And he was the best player on the pitch by a mile in that first hour. Not just the goals, he completely controlled that game. He completely dictated it. He was so good in that game. And I just think, I think definitely that. You know, I know City were in a rotten run of form at that point, but to do that at the Etihad was special, and not many players can do that.
If I'd have told you we only win 5 more games in the league after that,
I'd say I don't care.
Really?
No.
Yeah. Go on then. I reckon maybe we're sharing the same game.
So interestingly, you just said Maddison was by far the best player on the pitch against Man City.
Okay.
You're going to go Solanke.
I know Kulusevski in the same game.
Some people said Kulu at Old Trafford, but you're going Kulu in the same game.
Yeah, I mean, he got the assist for the first goal with that brilliant pass to Maddison. The second goal he set up by beating a couple of players and getting it to Solanke. And I think that was at the time where Kulusevski was sort of building his aura back up as a top player through the middle of the pitch as well.
Yeah.
I think he started on the right, actually, because I don't think Johnson played that or started.
No, Johnson was a sub,
Yeah. And I just thought he was magnificent.
He played a part in the 3rd goal, didn't he?
Yeah,
did he not play a ball round to the back for Solanke?
Yeah.
Because he moved over to the left at one point. Johnson must have been on by then. He played it to the back to Solanke.
For Porro's goal.
And Solanke cut it back for Porro.
Yeah.
Kulusevski was phenomenal. Maybe I got my Maddison glasses on a bit. He was phenomenal in that game, but I just think the 2 goals edged it for me.
I'm going to go different to both of you. I'm going to go Lucas Bergwijn against Liverpool, which I thought was a kind of a coming-of-age game.
League Cup.
Yeah, League Cup. That's why. I mean, obviously, he scored the winner. Bergwijn was obviously always a talent, but it was always with this caveat, always come from the Swedish league. You know, it's like a tier 3 league, whatever you want to call it. It's going to take him a while. And it did take him a while. Obviously, a real talent, but he was loose and, he thought he might take time. I just felt that was a coming-of-age game, and I thoroughly enjoyed the foul that he did that he should have got sent off for. And I just thought it was brilliant. And then, Kulu at Old Trafford and Kulu at City and all those big players. So almost you expect those players to pull in those performances in those big games. And it wasn't the weakest Liverpool team. It was
Salah played.
Yeah, it was a pretty strong Liverpool team. And I just felt, for me, that was a standout performance of the season.
As a silly aside, had that been an FA Cup quarter-final sort of win and you progress, Kinski in that game would have been a club legend forevermore.
Yeah.
To arrive 2 days later and put that performance in as a 20-year-old kid or whatever.
Glenn Hoddle in goal. The way he was pinging those passes. I think Glenn Hoddle did go in goal for us once. All right. talking to midfielders, we're going to get back to the grades. A man who divides opinion, but Adam Nathan, again, if you talk about Europa League performances, certainly the back end, it's Yves Bissouma.
C. He's one that I don't think you can discount how poorly he started the season on a number of levels. He was ragged in possession, cost us some big goals. Arsenal away in the league, Liverpool in the cup, first goal. I do think a lot of those were systemic, because if you look at the stills of when he had the ball and gave them away, the fullbacks are in 3 different stadiums, which doesn't particularly help the situation.
You don't know whether we're attacking or defending.
But you are allowed to get rid. And so, again, another one that put in, because he played both Bodo games in the final. He didn't play Frankfurt, did he? No. So it's 3 very, very good performances, but I think it would be slightly...
So if it was a school report, it would say and C, and we must do better.
Must do better. Looking forward to seeing the improvements come in next season would be my school report. If he's around. I dare say we may not get to see those, but if that's the end of Bissouma, then what a brilliant way for him to finish.
Yeah. Jake?
I've always been a big fan of Bissouma. I think he doesn't do himself justice for how good he is. He should be, with his skill set, one of the best centre midfielders in the league. When we signed him for 25 million, I was like, how have we nicked this bloke for, half price without going all Arsenal and Declan Rice? I don't know how we signed him for 25 million. And as we mentioned, he was brilliant, coming in from the dark to play 2 semi-finals and a final, and he was faultless. But I cannot forget those 8 months prior. He was abysmal. His season started off with the whole laughing gas thing where he got suspended. And, I know he came back and he scored a couple of goals, a really good goal against Everton and West Ham, but he didn't do anything of note from about September till Bodo Glimt. Nothing.
Rating?
C.
I mean, do you remember the reaction when he was in the Bodo team?
Yeah, I remember it.
Everyone
thought it was going to be...
At home.
Sarr, wasn't it?
Anyone.
I couldn't believe it.
Bissouma was one that you hadn't even contemplated would play.
I remember saying, but he's never going to play for us again now.
Yeah.
The Premier League games are, these dead rubbers is where he'll play, and then he's never going to get a look in, and then it was...
Yeah. I'm giving him a C+, because he'll always be a legend for winding up the Arsenal players on the pitch when he was a Brighton player. So he always gets that meme that goes around of him laughing. Is that when Brighton got a point at Arsenal and it stopped Arsenal finishing in the top 4?
Yeah.
Really, really talented player. I wonder whether him being so talented also lets him down sometimes. He sort of spawns around as if like, I'm
better than everyone.
I'm so good. Like, just give me the ball and I'll do this. And we need a little bit more than that. But like you say, back into the season, Bodo at home, he was excellent.
Bodo away as well.
Bodo away, really excellent. And the final, up there with one of our best players. I mean, they all played.
It just
really
seemed
well.
like he suddenly started to care again. I know.
Well, again, this comes into the who won us this Europa League. Did the players just did the whole club? Did the manager? The closer it got, the players were like, oh my god, if I step up here and do what I can do, we are going to win this Europa League. And he was one of those players.
And he knows how to celebrate, don't he?
He's also definitely one that benefits with the guy next to him.
Yeah.
Formation wise.
Well, all right, let's do that then. Talking to the guy next to him, one of my favourites. I'm a bit scared of how you're gonna rate him. It's Rodrigo Bentancur. I'll go first. Love the guy, as I've said before. I know where he lived. I stalked him for a bit. I didn't. He was next to my son's school, so I would be outside the house.
Quite a tough one.
It is a tough one because I'm going to have to go. I'm going to go B-, which might be high, but because I'm biased towards him, I think a super talented player. Still not 100% sure what he is. Is he a 6? Is he an 8? I would love him to sign a new contract. Again, I think he was someone who's experienced, John. He's got X number of caps for Uruguay, played at World Cups and Copa Americas. Another one who just in his mind went, we're going to win this Europa League and I'm going to be a key player in that. Thought he was excellent against Bodo, excellent in a lot of those games. And I'd be very sad to see him go. If I had to choose one, I would lose Bissouma. I think a lot of people would. Some people might get rid of both of them, but I think you can't. I don't think you can fault him for his efforts. And he's had so many injuries, and I feel for him. I think we'd be silly to let him go.
Mm-hmm. C+ for me.
I think that's probably what I should give him, but because I love him so much, he gets a B-.
obviously absences for various reasons, but the one that really, really stuck with me is, do you remember he got a booking in the last minute against Wolves for a ridiculous at home that got him suspended just after he came back from the long suspension.
He was walking that tightrope just before Christmas.
Yeah, I remember, and we all knew this booking, and he
Christmas.
flew into a tackle for absolutely no reason, and it looked like a guy who just couldn't care less.
Wanted to have his new year.
Yeah, wanted to have his new year, and I think he had a pretty rough time of it playing as a lone holding midfielder.
Yep.
Didn't really know what to do position-wise. But again, another one that when you put someone next to him and said, look, this is your job, block that off, keep the ball moving over, I think he looked much, much better.
I know he's not officially in the leadership group, but certainly in the final, and I think one of the legs, it might have been Frankfurt away. I'm watching him and he's dictating, he's talking, and he's calm down, or he's saying, speed it up, go. He's not officially a leadership group, and I'm not saying he would ever be captain, but that experience shone through in the back end of the season.
I'll be honest, I can't remember Bentancur playing this season besides his last 4 Europa League games. I remember him scoring a few headers from corners at the South Stand. Yeah. I cannot remember. Was he injured this season?
Yeah, he got a concussion against Liverpool.
And he obviously had that suspension.
Had 8-game ban.
I can't remember anything that he's done from January. Not in a bad way. I'd give him a B- just because he's been better than Bissouma, and as Ad says, he's better with another defensive player next to him. He needs that protection. He's not a lone sitter.
What position is he for you? What kind of player?
He's one of two sitters. He needs someone defensive next to him.
He does, doesn't he?
He definitely does.
Yeah. He shouldn't be the one on his own breaking up.
But like the theme of this show, he stood up massively when we needed him. He was fit. He stood up. He was amazing in Europe. And
I mean, my favourite Premier League team to watch probably ever is like the Klopp's best Liverpool team, which had 3 forwards, wide fullbacks, and then 3 midfielders that were just destroyers that ran.
Fabinho, Henderson.
Yeah, and Wijnaldum. And for me, he's that kind of player that he can set the foundations for the team. He can be creative, but ultimately he's there to fight fires, give it on, fight fires, give it on. And the way in which we've tried to play without that defensive solidity, I think he's been one that's really cost him because of that.
One thing about Bentancur, I know people say, "Oh, it's not his job. He should score more goals. Mm-hmm. He's technically great and he's brilliant in the air. He should score more goals from corners."
Do you remember when we signed him? The day after we signed him, he was on international duty when we signed him, and he scored this absolute wallop of a half volley for Uruguay.
He's never had a long shot for us. He scored from outside the box.
That was from outside the box. It was very similar to the shot he had against Bodo that the keeper tipped over the bar, which was a brilliant hit.
I feel like he should be in that, that sort of area on the edge of the box more.
And he had a big role to play in the goal in Bilbao, where he suddenly popped up in their box from nowhere.
I do think in 30 years of going to Spurs, we've got about 10 goals from central midfield in that entire time. We just never, like Genius had one good year when he scored a few goals. We just never, ever have a goal scoring central midfielders.
Yeah. So at the start of the season, I looked at our squad and I was like, well, central midfield is absolutely fine. We're loaded in central midfield. Don't have to worry. The next player I'm going to call up, Pape, was one of those players that I thought would go on and have a really, really strong season, but I don't think he did. And I actually think you look at our central midfield now, and it needs work. It needs improving. I think that will be a position that we sign. I'll start with the grading of this guy. Pape Sarr, I am going to give him a C. I just don't think he had a very good season. Gets an assist in the Europa League final. Wonderful. But I thought it would be like, I hate this word, breakout season for him. And I don't think it happened. Don't trust him on the ball. Really good, like legs off the bench, fine. You want him to be that sort of Patrick Vieira player. I don't think he's ever going to be that player.
He's much better than that.
Exactly, he'll be much better than that. But for me, it's just a C. I just think he was slightly disappointing.
It hasn't happened for him this year.
He looked a bit lost at times, didn't he, this season? He didn't really look like he knew what he was meant to be doing.
But again, I think he's another one, and I don't think it's a coincidence that all of our central midfielders we've graded low, because I just don't think the system is particularly conducive to how any of them are meant to play. I mean, in those first 10 games, inverted commas, something that was synonymous was that if Porro would go forward, he was just in that sort of right central midfielder position, filling in as cover, and that seems to have been abandoned for whatever reason. And I just don't think the way we play necessarily suits someone like him unless it's going to be in sort of the Ange Wall kind of system and he can play as one of the two. He's one that I'm really looking forward to seeing next year from an interest point of view.
Yeah.
Not looking forward to it as in can't wait. I think next year will be we're going to have so many games, big games, that he's going to have to start probably 30 games minimum, I would have thought.
Do you think it's a year where we sort of go, okay, 26, 27, he might be, you staying or going?
Yeah. It's probably new contract next summer or sold.
Yeah.
I would have thought.
Yeah. Rating?
C.
Saunders?
I'll give him a C+.
Oh, make me press buttons.
Just because he gets an extra point, just because he was absolutely outstanding in the final, having basically not started a big game.
Yeah, he made the goal and assisted the goal, didn't he?
But it wasn't just that though. He was absolutely brilliant.
Like people are talking about Jonny
Absolutely
Cardozo
superb.
for Betis and what he might bring to Spurs. From what I can tell, people talk about his energy, breaking play up, not amazing on the ball. You can't tell me Sarr couldn't be made into a great player to do something like that. Be sort of this one of two sitters that just rats around, gets in the way, uses his body.
That's what I thought he would be.
Same,
Yeah.
but it just hasn't.
My only concern about Sarr is, and I remember thinking this, I don't know why, that Coventry League Cup game where he was absolutely awful, is his technical ability worries me.
Yeah.
He's so careless on the ball. He's not a great passer.
Loves a shot though,
I
which
know,
has
and
to be
to
respected.
be fair, he scored one of probably our goal of the season against City in the League Cup.
Not the actual goal of the season against Bournemouth.
I like Sarr. I really like him. I like the story, and I love the way that he came in last year and he was
Oh,
brilliant.
sorry to interrupt. It was Son who got goal of the season, didn't he? For the goal
Against
the
United.
corner.
So I thought it was going to be Sarr against Bournemouth,
I see.
which was just as much.
I like Sarr more than I rate him, and the song is brilliant.
What is the song?
I'm a Sarr man.
I'm a Sarr man. We're going to talk about this guy briefly, but I'm going to rate him because I don't think it's fair. Archie Gray. Clear talent.
Yeah, I
Feel sorry for him. He's been shifted around. I think the only position he didn't play was in goal.
I think he looks more like a centre half than anything else to me
Yeah,
so
I
far.
Yeah, okay.
Obviously, that's going to require bulking up, but he's 18. So, I mean,
Yeah,
the
he's a
body
kid.
changes that guys do go through between 18 and 21, 22. But if you said to me, he's going to play 38 games next season, start every game, where would you be least concerned? I'd probably say right centre half.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he'd give you enough as a fullback going forward.
And midfield would be far too
Midfield
weak.
too weak. But actually, I thought his best performances came at centre half.
I agree. He reads the game really well.
I think ultimately, as much as when sort of Van der Ven and Romero came back, he sort of got shifted out of it, and I think he started 20 games running and then hardly played a minute for weeks when they came back. I think ultimately, an 18-year-old who, if you'd predicted how many games Archie Gray would play, you'd probably said 10 to 15 this season, maybe a few. I think he played 40 to 50 games, maybe. 40.
As I said, Sarr played the most.
He must have played 40 to 45 games.
Then you've got Porro and Archie Gray. I'm going to have to.
And maybe I've over-exaggerated.
He must have
that.
featured in 40.
46. He was in the squad for all 60 games.
You can only look at this season from his point of view as a positive. An 18-year-old kid coming into a big club, it was a big transfer fee. No one really knew what to expect. We've heard good things. And the exposure, sometimes maybe a bit overly exposed around that Christmas period, but the exposure's been amazing.
Yeah,
Nothing beats playing in top-level men's football for a teenager.
Yeah.
And he's had that experience now, so he should only benefit from
It's
it.
one reason why winning the cup is such a massive moment, because you've gone into this season taking enormous risks on young players in your squad. And had we just gone into next season 17th with no Europe, you're absolutely knackered.
Yeah.
But the risk they've had has sort of paid off, because they've managed to get something to show for the season in which they've given young kids 150 or so games.
Yeah.
And even if 2 of Bergvall, Gray, Odegaard and Moore come good off the back of this
Still a
season,
success.
that's a massive success. And that could change the entire way that the squad needs to be constructed going forward, because you've managed to get 2 young players in that you can rely on for going forward.
Yeah.
Could be huge.
Talking of young players, same age, 19.
A plus.
You don't know who I'm picking up. Yep, it's Lucas Bergvall. All right, well, you've already told me, so you can start. A plus. You sticking with it?
A.
Oh, okay.
He's brilliant. We were saying off air that after that Galatasaray game, which I'm sure a lot of people were concerned about, he looked, it didn't start great for him. He had the game against Karabag where Dragusin got sent off and he got taken off after 5 minutes, didn't he? And you felt like that was really his chance. And then he was not playing much in the Premier League at all. And then he looked really out of place. I know Galatasaray away is not the best game to judge an 18-year-old kid, but he looked really scared on the ball and he looked a bit hesitant. And I remember thinking at the time, this is a Championship loan deal in January. And didn't play much. And then he started against Southampton and was very good, albeit probably a Championship team. And something just clicked over Christmas. I don't even really know what. And I think you mentioned that Liverpool game. That must have given him so much confidence because we went to the Emirates a week later, didn't we? And he was really good. I know we weren't great that day. I thought he was really good and he looked comfortable. And then it didn't look back, did it?
Yeah, we were poor that day, but a lot of
He was
Arsenal
good.
fans said to me, that Bergvall, he's got something.
He played as a lone six.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically.
Yeah.
Add rating?
Be harsh on him to give him anything less than an A, really, wouldn't it? I think, albeit he didn't start... When he started the season, I honestly didn't know what we'd signed. He looked like a kid that just looked so far out of his depth, and I couldn't work out. Normally, at least you can see... Well, there's something there that I can kind of cling to, but he didn't look comfortable on the ball. His passing wasn't great. Everything was backwards. His first touch looked heavy, and I didn't look like he had the power to...
Physically, he changed overnight.
Yeah, and then Maddison did an interview where he said, he's a lump. I remember saying it to one of the... He's a lump. He's a real lump, isn't he? And it's almost as if he realised, I can compete physically with these guys.
Yep.
And that maybe, who knows, that to me strikes me as the thing that mentally clicked in his brain that thought, right, I can go out there and I'm not going to get bullied here.
Yep.
And he was great in that Newcastle home game, wasn't he, as well? We lost 2-1. He fronted up to Joe Linton. We lost the game, but he fronted up and was strong and hasn't looked back. And, gutted for him that he wasn't able to be a part of it, because that would have been a really lovely moment for him.
I'll give him an A as well. I think of all that we talked about before about the back four, it was vital that the back four played. And when you talk about Cooley, Maddison and Bergvall, out of all those players, if I had to pick one to start the final, it would have been him, because of the way he owned Casemiro in that League Cup, the 4-3 win.
And the 1-0 even more so at home in the league.
The 1-0. Maybe that was what I was thinking.
When he was really
I was thinking. Sorry, it was the one in the league. The way that Bruno should have played, or in my mind, the way that Bruno was going to play, I thought he was the one that we would miss. And to say that about a 19-year-old in a major final, like I said, I thought that Liverpool game was a coming-of-age game for him, and he just went on and on and on. And to say that about a 19-year-old who's fresh out of the Swedish league, I will give him an A. Go on, Jake.
It's worth a mention. He was also 2 inches away from scoring one of the great Tottenham goals.
Against RZ?
No, against...
Frankfurt?
Was it Frankfurt or RZ?
He hit
the long shot.
It was
Frankfurt.
outrageous. It was outrageous. Yeah. He squeezed between 2 players. I
Beyond
remember him pulling the
Goldbeck-esque.
trigger. Yeah, I remember him pulling the trigger thinking, why are you shooting from there? And that deserved to go in. He didn't really get much luck. He also had... Didn't he have a goal ruled out? I can't remember who it was against.
For a ridiculous VAR decision.
One of them. Although he got his moment against Liverpool, which was great.
Yeah. Again, possibly add more goals going forward, but that's not a criticism.
The ceiling is high for him.
Really
he can
high.
go as far as he wants, I think.
I'll let you do this one, Jake, because he's your hero. James Maddison. A plus for vibes since last Wednesday.
A minus. I'm sure people will disagree. I know he's splits opinion, but I think when he's generally played this season and he dragged us through those Europa League games, I thought he was exceptional against AZ, Frankfurt at home, Frankfurt away the half an hour he played, and Bodo Glimt the 70 minutes he ran the game for that sort of first half at least. I know he went missing sort of during them winter months, but
they don't count. Adam Nathan told us.
Winter counts. Winter counts.
He was outstanding against City. He scored against Chelsea. I think he scored against Liverpool. He scored against United at home, the winner, and his numbers are always good. I don't know how many goals and assists he's got. Probably around 20, 25. I know I'm a massive fan. I want more. Of course, I want more. He's a super talented guy, and he should be. As I mentioned with Basuma, he should be considered one of the best in the league in his position.
12 goals, 11 assists in all comps this season. It's not bad, is it?
Not bad.
He's probably got, touching 50 goals and assists for Spurs, maybe a bit lower, maybe 40, 45 since we signed him. He's a crazy talent. And I know he talks a lot, and I know people get frustrated with that. I know people find him a bit arrogant, but I think Tottenham are a better team when James Maddison's in the team.
75 appearances all comp, 16 goals, 21 assists. So it's a goal contribution every 2 games.
Yeah, maybe I overplayed 50, but
no, but 37 out of 70. It's a goal contribution every 2 games. It's not bad.
He needs to score a free kick.
He did.
One. Villa.
He did.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, just,
he needs to score another one.
I'll go next. I'm going to give him a B. This might it might not be his fault, but I think we need more. And maybe he's not as good as I thought he was. When we signed him, I was like, yes, we finally signed that 10. When I read out 16 goals, 21 assists, I'm like, okay. Assists, I have a little bit of a problem with, but whatever. Those numbers are down there. They're up there. They're recorded. They're down there in terms of they are fact. But just feel we need a little bit more. I think he did come into his own again in Europe, like all of them. I think he's just a bit faffy sometimes. I think sometimes he tries to hit the glory ball when the glory ball isn't on. But yeah, I certainly wouldn't be getting rid of him. I just feel, don't know, not the player I thought he was when we signed him.
I'm going to split the difference and go B+.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine always says, and rightly so, that we don't play well as a team if Maddison's not playing. But I think that's a double-edged sword, because I'm not actually convinced what his level is. And if we are so reliant on a player like that, what does that say about us as a team? Now, you can't, for this season, it's worked great, and we end up winning European Cup off the back of it, which is amazing. But I think he sort of sets the floor and sets the ceiling for the team when he does play. But is he necessarily good enough to be the player that drags you into the top 3 of the table? I don't know.
You've basically said what I wanted to say, but much better.
I can't even take credit for it. It's a friend of mine's comment, so I'm just ripping him off.
Own it. All right. Before we come to the forwards, I want to ask you your performance of the season. How'd you go first as a whole, as a team? And it might be as simple as the final against Man United, but I don't know. Go on.
Let's not do that, because someone will say that. Let's go City in the League Cup at home, 2-1, where we were slightly more pragmatic, scored 2 good goals, and we should have scored a number of goals in the counter-attack in the second half. And it was one of those games where I like counter-attacking football. It's nice to be in possession, but for me, the most thrilling goals are always the ones where it's 3-4 passes and you're in all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And I thought the way we played there was a really good blend. It's the blend that I wish we played every week, of a tiny bit more control and pragmatism in order to open up
ruthless
space.
Attacking.
100% straight line running.
Straight line running.
It's easy to sort of say one of the cities, City away or whatever, but maybe a bit controversial. But I'm going to go Villa at home, just because that second half was phenomenal. And I remember leaving the ground that day, and I hadn't been to many games over the last year or so because of work. And I remember leaving the ground that day thinking, that was phenomenal. I was so happy for Solanke. He scored 2, didn't he? Scored a beautiful chip.
Dink,
dink, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So
you were at
good.
Maddison's free kick game. You still remember
that. Maybe I'd left by then. It was absolutely brilliant. I remember thinking, do you know what? It's been a rocky start to the season, but this is a seriously good Aston Villa team. I think they'd beaten Bayern Munich not long before. I remember thinking, this is really good. And I left the ground that day and I thought, do you know what? I'm going to make a massive, massive, massive effort to go to as many home games as I did. A week later, we lost to Ipswich and I was like, that's it, I'm not going again. But that was so good. That was so good. That was, I hate the phrase, but that was Ange at his absolute best, and Aston Villa could not handle us that day.
There's nothing better than scoring goals in clusters as well. We got 3 in about 15 minutes.
When you've not finished celebrating one goal and you score again.
We didn't win at home again until that was
We only won United in Southampton, didn't
correct. That was the 3rd of November. We didn't win at home again until the 16th of February. Lads, it's Man United. and then Southampton. I'm going to give my performance of the season to Eintracht away.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know we could do it.
No one thought we were getting.
I didn't know we could do it, and that's a tough place to go. All of that stuff we all know about the Eintracht's home record, and Ollie said it on this pod as well. There's nothing better than a swashbuckling goal and the joy of scoring those goals. Sometimes you just love being at a game where you're heading every cross away with them. I was doing it in the final against Bilbao. I'm heading it away. And you come away from it, not that I was there, but you've been to games where it's happened, where you're exhausted because you've been under the cosh. And I didn't think we had it in us. And we talked about the defenders, Romero, Van der Ven, it all just stood up that day. And that was, for me, it wasn't the best performance. It wasn't the Ange ball, it was the Ange wall. Because I didn't know we could do it. It was our toughest game of the tournament, really, other than the final. And they came through it. And for me, I love Villa at home, West Ham at home, City away. But I kind of expect Spurs to play like that. And that's how we should play. And I didn't know we had it. And
it also made me feel something again.
Yeah.
I'd had months of... I know obviously we had the AZ game, but it was a bit different. I expected us to get through. I hadn't felt anything since probably maybe the League Cup quarter-final against United, or the semi-final. We'd had like... What was it, start of April? It was 3 months of like, I hardly celebrated a goal. I didn't feel anything. And we beat Frankfurt. And I remember thinking, we're in a semi-final now.
And it might be why I gave Bergvall the performance of the season against Liverpool, because 1-0 wins are they're glorious and they're so important. And we don't do it enough. Chelsea,
and a penalty as
Arsenal,
well.
1-0 to the Arsenal. Chelsea's Mourinho team is 1-0s. Yeah. Yeah,
we also all left the home game against Frankfurt thinking that was the end of it.
Yeah, we missed our chance.
So the Frankfurt away game was probably the last time we went into a game in Europe thinking we're done here. Because Bodo, deep down, everyone knew we were going to beat them. And then you're the final against United and there was enough optimism. Whereas I think leaving the Frankfurt game, having only drawn 1-1 in the home game, missing all the chances that we did, you think that's a missed opportunity. And we're just going to go there, get overwhelmed by the atmosphere. But they sort of dragged us back in every 10 minutes.
The season was over that day.
It was done.
It was done.
We all sat down to watch that game thinking...
Ange's gone in the
This
morning.
is the end of it, yeah.
And if it wasn't for an on loan Leeds fullback missing 3 chances, it might have been. But you've got to ride your luck in those games.
We deserve to win that
We
game.
did, and you'll have Gary Diamond in the WhatsApps telling us he knew we were going to win in Frankfurt. But that's the one for me. All right, let's go to the forwards. A few to talk about here. We'll start with... Well, I put him in the forwards, but he's played in sort of the Maddison position a little bit too. It's Dejan Kulusevski, who I didn't realise. I actually watched back as we record on Thursday, 8 days after the final. I watched back the parade for the first time, and he wasn't there. He wasn't. I know he's got that serious injury. He wasn't allowed to be there.
You can't travel. I think it was.
How did he get to Bilbao?
No, he was in Bilbao.
I assume the surgery was in Spain.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know if it was coincidental that there was a specialist.
Why would he have a surgery in Spain?
Sometimes they get sent out to see specialists. I think there's a specialist. Yeah.
Okay, but he wasn't at the parade, which was a surprise. I thought maybe he'd hobble up onto that plinth at the end. Anyway, Jake Saunders, start with you.
I'll give him an A.
Okay, yeah.
He's had a bit of a weird season because he didn't do much of note from sort of that Ipswich goal onwards. Like, did he do anything of note after that? I can't remember.
No, he did.
He came back from this minor knock, which somehow ended his season, or didn't end his season. Came back and then, sort of played in a few of those irrelevant Premier League games. But he was phenomenal at the start of the season, and he was chipping in with goals. He was chipping in with assists. He was dragging the team through a really, really rough period of results. Did
his season actually go the other way? Everyone else's sort of went up.
Yeah.
And his season actually went the other way.
Well, it was annoying because, it sort of set up for Kulu to drag us to the Europa League in Europe, and he didn't kick a ball in the knockouts, did he?
He came on at half-time away to Eintracht, or just before.
And he started
came on for
Bodo.
Madison at Eintracht.
Oh, sorry, I completely forget them games, yeah.
He
was quite poor
leg.
against Bodo away. I remember thinking, he needs to show something in that Palace at home game. It was almost like a warm-up game for the final for him to show something, because I was thinking we need we got no Maddison, and I don't know if Bergvall was injured by that point. We desperately needed Kulusevski to show something.
Do you think he would have started the final if he was fit?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. But he was brilliant at the start of the season. He was absolutely superb.
Yeah.
And he scored quite a few
I'll
goals.
save you the clicks. And he also gave me my personal favourite celebration of the season for a goal. The Ipswich game, I watched it in a bar in Nashville with the Nashville Spurs supporters.
I'd love to go there.
There were about 50 people there for must have been 9 o'clock start in the morning. Great atmosphere, and they had this snooker table right in front of where I was sitting, and it was basically the goal that kept us up, because it was 2-1, quite dicey. Then Spence scored to make it through and ease the pressure. Then he went down, and obviously that goal was right in line with the camera angle, so you could see it all the way in. And I just ran around the snooker table and jumped into my mate's arms while I was watching it in Nashville. So my celebration of the season, Kulusevski.
I am going to click because I'm going to give him an A-, potentially B+, but I don't want to be shouted at. I don't know whether not knowing his position, I wouldn't say lets him down, but I'm still a little bit, what are you? Because I don't think he's not quick enough to be a winger. But we miss him when he's not on it. Sometimes when he's playing, I'm like, is he playing? But yeah, big fan of his. Would like more goals, I think.
Mm-hmm. He's not a killer.
No, he's not a killer. What's he got here? I'll give you Premier.
He probably got 20 goals and assists.
Premier League, he's 116 appearances, 22 goals. What's that? 1 in 5.
Sort of 8 league goals a season.
Yeah, he's gone half a season 5 goals, and then full seasons 2, 8, 7.
He's good enough to be pushing 10 league goals every season.
Yeah, he definitely is. All right, next up on this wheel of fun, Gary Diamond's favourite, Johnson again. Ole. This is going to be interesting. I'm going to let Adam Nathan go first.
Oh, no. B-. I don't think he does enough in general play at all, to the point where I think he is at times detrimental. Obviously, giving us the greatest moment imaginable, I think he touched it. But I'll let you into my attacking player metric and how I judge them and whether they've been a good signing or not. So for me, you take the number of millions they signed for. So in Johnson's case, let's say it was 60 for the sake of argument. Across the first 3 years of their career at the club, their goals and assists should equal more than the millions they signed for.
Do you know the numbers?
I don't know the numbers.
He's definitely on course.
But I reckon he's, after 2 seasons, he's probably on track.
35.
I think it's more.
85 appearances. Go on then.
So appearances don't, in my metric, appearances don't matter. It's just against the millions across 3 seasons. But what's he on?
23 goals.
Yeah.
18 assists.
So it's 4, and he was 60 million, or was it 50?
It was 50.
50.
So he's 50 million. So he's on course. And I think if he had another season, you'd be hard pushed to say he hasn't been a productive signing.
But there are so many buts, aren't there?
There's so many buts. I've never known a player like him.
Yeah. Never known a player like him. Have we had a player like him?
Not that I can think of.
Or can you think of a player in the Premier? It's like, God, he scored again. I didn't even know he was playing.
How can we be given a guy that scored 18 goals out wide and, scored in the semis in a final, not an A+? I'm not saying we should, but how can that happen?
He plays football like Harry Potter plays Quidditch.
I don't watch Harry Potter.
If any Harry Potter fans out there, does absolutely nothing in the
game.
It's designed to not do anything, but then catches the golden snitch to win it, and takes no part in the game whatsoever, which is actually Harry Potter's point in Quidditch. There's a real nerd one for you.
I'll give him a B. I think, his goals are a little bit skewed as well, because before Bodo Glimt and Man United, his goals in 2025 were against Tamworth, Ipswich, and Southampton. I think he scored 2 against Southampton and 2 against Ipswich. So it's a little bit skewed. But, how long have we been crying out for a goal-scoring winger?
Yeah.
And maybe we've got one. And 40 goals and assists, as Ad was saying, the way if we're here next season and he's 60 to 65 goals and assists in 3 seasons, you'd go, that's a very good signing.
If we had a dominant left winger who could stand people up, dribble, and get the ball across, like Nico Williams, for example. Yeah. If he was our left winger and Solanke was the striker, you could mitigate for the lack of work Johnson does elsewhere. I think where we've struggled is that if you're throwing out a clown like Timo Werner or Son, who's not been particularly good at holding the ball up this year, and there's been more pressure on Johnson to do more than he has, that's probably highlighted his weaknesses more than we probably haven't sung Johnson's praises because we've been more worried about the weaknesses. But I think, again, that's another thing that's come with the personnel we've had, like throwing an Odebear out there who's another kid. Yeah, Johnson needs someone opposite him to do the dirty work, which is fine.
Yeah. What did you give him?
B, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to give B. I mean, listen, I've given Pedro Porro an A+, which was going to surprise people from the start. But that's because I just feel Porro, he's given everything and it's just hit all his limits and he's reached them and he couldn't have given any more. I'm not saying Johnson hasn't tried, But I watch him, I said it about a year ago. I don't know if coward is the right word, but he's scared to take on his man. He was doing it at Forest. Do you remember when we signed Stephen Pienaar and he would it was at Everton and he would twist people up. He never did anything at Spurs. He was scared. When he came to Spurs, he was scared. And I feel like Johnson wears the badge. It weighs heavy on him. And I thought, listen, 18 goals.
I hope this moment, not just the fact that he scored the winner, but the connection with the crowd at the parade and stuff, I hope helps. I know that sounds a bit crazy.
He was hammered.
He, hopefully, maybe he finally feels appreciated now. He had all that social media nonsense, which was
disgusting.
Wrong. But, I mean, he has to kick on. He has to.
I think there's a better player there, and I think he needs to shake off his fear of almost playing for Spurs. It's like, come on, you're not slow. When was the last time we took a man on? You don't trust him in that one-on-one position at all. And I've seen him do it for Forest, and that's very frustrating. Right, next up, as we come to go through the forwards, is Son. Oh, should I go first? I'll go first. B-. Lifted a trophy, absolute legend. Once Harry Kane got his trophy, I felt he was the next player in world football that should have been ticking at that box of winning a major trophy for the first time, and he's done it. Not been his best season. I don't think last season was great either. Someone who's definitely missing his mate, Harry Kane. Legs are probably going, but God, I love him. He gets a B-, which I think is bang on for me. Not his best season, but he's Sonny, man. I can't give him anything else.
Yeah, I'll go with it.
Yeah.
Just you're allowed to give a nostalgia point, and I think
we don't want to say anything bad about him. We know he wasn't at his best this season. We know his legs have gone. He's had a few niggles, and
it's got to pay for my parking while you talk.
It's frustrating. His legs are going, and his best days are obviously behind him. But
do you disagree with I wouldn't say clamour, but the talk of him potentially going?
No, don't sell him. You can't sell him now.
Ad?
He'll be a squad player. Squad player's fine. Do you know what? Perfect for Son. We're in the Champions League now. You can, he'll play Champions League games. He'll sort of get rest in the Premier League. I don't think he's 40, 50 games starting anymore. I think those days are sort of long gone.
Yeah. And forgetting hindsight, right not to start him in the final?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you agree with that even before you knew the result?
Yeah, because I didn't want to play Son and Johnson together.
Yeah, I was worried about that. He was abysmal as well when he came on Son. Not that it mattered at all. But.
Yeah, he wasn't great. Okay, let's go with the man who did start in place of him. I've been doing this well all game, actually. I need to press that. Then I need to press that. Richarlison. It's more of a rating, but also it's a buy or it's a keep or sell really as well for Richarlison.
I mean, he's absolutely knackered by my metric. He's probably about 20 goals and assists short of his millions.
Okay, so I'm not going to ask you to grade him. He's had a difficult season. It's been very patchy. It's hard to almost give him a grade, but I'm going to ask you keep or sell.
Sell. He's not fit enough. If you could guarantee me he'd be fit for 50 games, I'd keep him because I think he's happy to play two positions, happy enough to be a backup, and is good enough to score goals against most teams. But he's going to be injured for 30, 40 games again. So I would take the first offer you get for him, unfortunately, and say thank you very much for a tricky 3 years. It's not quite worked out, but you cannot have the backup striker like this.
Never fit.
No, it's ruined Solanke's season as well to a point.
Yeah, he's been knackered. I remember thinking at the start of the season, extended Europa League group stage, hopefully a few cut runs.
Yeah.
Richarlison will be perfect. He played one game against Alkmaar, then got injured.
Yeah. I mean, he should. Our backup striker needs to be able to start 25 games a season.
Yeah, easily. I completely agree. I like him. I really like him. I like everything he stands for. I know he's not everyone's cup of tea, but it's a fitness thing.
Yep.
So if we can get a decent offer from Saudi or somewhere, we got to cash in.
There was talk that he didn't want to go to Saudi. Just find
I
somewhere where he will.
I think you have to do what it would appear Amrim has done with Garnacho and say, find a new club.
I can see him going to Fulham.
Stay in
Marco
London.
Silva.
Yeah, he's going to want to be in the World Cup squad.
Yeah, we just got back in.
Yeah, he's not going to want to piss about with a World Cup spot.
He needs
on
to
the
be
line.
starting
He needs to
games.
play.
Good point.
And I think you have to use that to your advantage and say, find a club by middle of July.
Yeah, Everton or Fulham. You're right about Marco Silva.
He's been linked with Everton. I know there'd be the whole nostalgia with the new stadium, but I think he's been signed by Silva twice, hasn't he? Everton and Watford. So,
yeah. Dominic Solanke. Jake Saunders. Give us your grade.
I will go with an A-. I wasn't sure whether to go B+ or A-. We all want more goals from him. Of course we do. I think his work rate has not been rewarded. He's one of the hardest working players I can ever remember seeing at Spurs. The ground he covers, I don't know if it was, I think it was maybe the City League Cup game, and the camera sort of spanned him at full time, and he was he couldn't move. He was knackered. And there have been spells this season where we have just overplayed him because of Richarlison. And there was, a few games where maybe Kulu played up front, maybe Son did, but he played way too many games early on in the season.
46 games in total.
The way he plays, though, he should not be playing, as many games as he should have in terms of 90 minutes, Wednesday, Sunday, Thursday, Saturday.
Yeah.
And I was glad he got, some goals towards the end of the season, got a few penalties, scored quite a few. Scored against Bodo, didn't he? Scored against Frankfurt, some big goals. Of course we want more than 16 goals for 60
He played
million.
the most, third most minutes of the season. Porro the most, Kulu next, and then Solanke.
Which is mad, given he missed 6 weeks.
So he would have played
injury.
the most, probably, had he...
He would have played
Richarlison's
possibly
never
the most
available,
in the league.
like you say, which shouldn't be the case.
And look, he didn't look as good when he came back from that injury. He was rusty, but I still think in a competent team with better wingers, he can get 20 to 25 goals.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Add
B+.
B+.
And I haven't really got much more to say other than that. I just think it's been more of a B+ than an A- season, all things considered.
Okay. I'm gonna shock you. He's my player of the season, and he gets me an A+. Like Porro, he'd be my model pupil, head boy.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
I just strikers union. Again, it might be controversial. He has hit every limit again. I just feel he is what he is. He works hard. He probably would have got 20 goals if he'd stayed fit. I really like him. I said on the last end of season pod, we could maybe upgrade him. There are probably better strikers out there. But for the way he's come in, the first striker we've signed since Harry Kane left, to come from Bournemouth and score 16 goals and be crucial in the Europa League run, pressure penalties, key goals. I really like him. I think he gets an A+ because of his attitude as well.
He gets on with it, don't he? He doesn't
Gets on with it. Hasn't complained. Just every game, you know what you're going to get for him. Yeah, he's not the best centre forward in the world, far from it. But he is what he is, and he's our centre forward, and I absolutely love him. I don't think it's an easy team to play in.
My only concern about Solanke is obviously the goals, but he doesn't get many chances.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that the one that sticks to me is Southampton away, where we could have won that game by any score.
Barely had a shot.
He didn't have a shot.
Yeah.
We could have scored 10 that day.
Yeah.
And, the City game as well, which we sort of raved about, Maddison and Kulu. Solanke was phenomenal that day.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely ran that line perfectly.
Amazing.
More goals. He scored 20 league goals for Bournemouth last year, or maybe it was 19. He should be pushing those numbers in a team. Hopefully make some good signings with Maddison and Kulu.
So the only bloke, the biggest pessimist out of all of them, or that you may say that's you, I'm the only one giving A+ out here. Just to keep everybody happy. Right. The big question.
God. How are we rating the
Actually,
manager?
there's two more players very quickly. I'll just pop their pictures up. Udogie, I haven't really got much to say. Need to see more.
Can't give him a rating. Yeah.
Can't give him a rating. But this guy, just quickly, Matisse Tell, sign on loan, see you later.
Loan with obligation would be my ideal situation for him.
Agreed?
I don't want to be paying 60 million for him now. I do really like the guy.
He's not ready yet, is he?
He's shown flashes of brilliance, and you can tell he plays for a top club. But we can't afford to spend 60 million on him yet. No. I agree. Loan him again if we can, and I'm sure he'd come back for a year.
Oh God, yeah.
He obviously likes London.
He's not going to play for Bayern next year.
Integrated in quite well. He's got Udogie there, and he seemed at home quite quickly.
I suspect we will do another loan.
Yeah.
If we can do it for Werner, why can't we do it for Tell?
Yeah.
All right, the big question.
The big man.
There he is with the trophy. This could go on a while. It's Ange Postecoglou. I'm going to start with Adam Nathan.
Cheers. B-.
What would you have said if United had won the final?
F.
I don't have it on my... you said B-, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think winning a trophy should drag you from there to there. And I suppose where I am in my mind is, do I want to keep a B- manager? That's the discussions we were having in the last show where I couldn't work out where I was, because that's where I feel.
Are you any closer to knowing?
No, not at all.
Do you think the club are any closer to knowing?
I think they're all on holiday, aren't they? Just see what happens.
Yeah.
The league campaign has been an unmitigated disaster from start to finish, literally from start to finish.
Leicester to...
From the moment
Leicester
conceded against Leicester.
Yeah, Leicester to Brighton.
There's been nothing to hang your hat on to say that things are going in the right direction in the league. And then he found a way... He found a humility, or... It strikes me as a humility because he had to back down on his principles, but maybe he will turn around and say, no, actually, I know this is how you have to play cup football.
Yeah.
I can't believe that's the case. Maybe it is. But taking the guy at his word, which is maybe my mistake, I don't know. I'm fascinated to see your scores.
Jake?
I agree with B-. I think
right.
winning a trophy, you can't give him a C. I know the
Can you
league.
not?
No, the league campaign was an absolute disgrace. You know, the amount of goals we conceded, the defeats look wrong when you look at them. To think that a Tottenham team in this day and age could lose 22 league games is
it just the league defeats though? RZ away, awful.
Yeah, but knockout football's irrelevant.
Okay.
I don't care about
We
that.
got
And
through,
he
yeah.
generally did well in cups. If you look at who we beat in the cups as well. We beat City, Liverpool, United. I know we didn't get through against Liverpool, and I know the second leg against Liverpool was awful. But
Dreadful.
as I said, I agree with Ad. There would have been, you'd have had to go very far down the alphabet if we'd not won the final. But it's literally that kind of game. It changes it completely. I just can't give him. I know you probably will, but
I don't know.
I can't give him a C. Not from how that night made me feel. I can't. Whatever happens now with Ange, and whatever has happened, he will forever have a place in my heart just because of how happy he made me last week.
Are there stickers on that trophy? Someone drop it. Looks like it's got a couple of band-aids on it. Oh, it's glitter.
Can't
It's glitter.
overlook what he did last week.
Yeah.
Can I give him B-?
Sure.
James, put another minus on. I think if I gave him a C+, we'd all be in the mentions shouting at me.
But if you think C+, go with C+. And
I think the fact that he said
it's not an unreasonable thing.
I love that.
What?
At the time, I was like, I can't believe you've said that. The second season thing as a Tottenham manager, like, what are you thinking? I think that's just, as the youngsters say on Twitter, that is the coldest quote I've ever heard.
It's incredible. It's the biggest. It's one of the coldest in sporting history. Okay, if you're getting a C+ in school, what are you doing? Why are you getting a C? Why are you getting a plus? I'm just trying to reason with this here.
I honestly reckon if anyone sat in here and said A+ down to D-,
Yeah.
I reckon you could construct an argument to back it up.
For Ange.
He won us a trophy because he's gone from D. Like you said, you had to go all the way down the alphabet to find it. I think it's convenient excuses with the whole, I jacked this in, I jacked that in. I don't really believe you, mate, but you found a way to win the Europa League.
Say something good about him. He gave you the night of your life.
I've said it. He gave me the night of my life. He will forever be a hero for that. I do not trust him to take us next season. And what should next season bring? Another trophy would be great. I don't expect it. Maybe an FA Cup or League Cup. Not winning the Champions League. Not winning the Premier League. Next season, I want us back in the Europa League. And maybe a cup.
Only we could go into a season in the Champions League and go, I want to get back in the Europa League next year.
Well, how else?
I know. It's weird because we're obviously
I
not
would
in it
love
via
to
the
be
league.
back in the Champions League, but
we'd take sixth if offered now.
We need to find another 25 points. Probably more.
Any down there?
We need to find more points, and I just don't trust.
That's 9 wins, let's say, that we need to find. You could easily go through the fixtures we've had this year and find 9 wins.
Well, the
without even scratching
relegated
the surface.
The relegated
Yeah,
side's
exactly.
3 of them.
Yeah.
4.
We
3.
Southampton twice, beat Ipswich once, didn't beat Leicester.
Didn't beat
lost
Leicester
it.
either time.
So-
Didn't beat Wolves either time.
We never do.
No.
Didn't beat Palace either time. I know they've got a lot better.
But Palace at home is always a,
Come on.
there's a
No,
cannon fodder
no
for
points
us.
against Brighton, no points against Newcastle, 1 point against Bournemouth. You can easily find these
1
points.
point against Fulham.
Yeah.
These are all good sides, but
And I'll be happy to sit here in next May and go, I was wrong, and look at that, we've got 70 points and we won the League Cup.
no, but I don't think just because it now was to go right, you'd say you are wrong now. Because
No,
it's
but I'd be
perfectly
wrong about.
reasonable to.
I'd be wrong about not trusting
we
him
all
to do
want
it.
it. We all want it to be good. Of course we do.
He said, didn't he, on the stage or in one of the pressers, next season will be better. I mean, league couldn't be worse, mate. And I think he was pushing towards, we'll be back in that 6th to 4th bracket. But I don't.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows what's
A C plus might be harsh. You're right, Ad. You could sit.
I don't think it's harsh.
You could sit A plus to D minus, and you could make a case for all of it.
You could speak to, as you say, we could speak to 10 Spurs fans. They could
I
have
think-
a different rating easily.
He's in Cyprus, and we were going to possibly get him on, but it hasn't worked. I'd love to know what Gary would give him.
I reckon Gary gives him a C,
Yeah.
maybe C plus.
A thank
but
you.
probably a C,
Thank
even
you
a
for
C
Bi-
minus.
a thank you for Bilbao, but I don't know. I just don't trust him. And he's a hero, and he's a greater manager than Poch in my eyes. Now he's bought a trophy home.
It's unhelpful to compare, I think, the two. I don't.
Okay,
Again,
greater
it's one
managers-
of those things that you can. Pochettino will always hold the biggest place in my heart because of the years of joy that we had, albeit not getting over the line. I don't even know how you'd begin to.
Yeah, it's impossible to compare. Isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm expecting Daniel Levy to pop up next.
No, I haven't got a picture of all the squad. But I want to ask overall, how do you rate the season?
I mean, it
B.
I don't think I can give the manager a C+.
I'll give it a C.
If a B, actually.
So I'll give it a C plus.
Yeah, well, that's why I sort of went there with Postecoglou.
We hardly won a game. Do you know when I was thinking about
bizarre.
our best performances, I was thinking, I can't think of many wins because there hasn't been many. There just hasn't. You know, if we had lost to AZ in that second leg, for example, I mean, this would have been. Imagine if we didn't have Europe, and that would have been what we'd served up this season.
I mean, what if we lost to Tamworth either way? Like, that would have been a hook for the season.
Tamworth for taking credit.
Do you
for the
think
final.
we talked off air? Do you think there was ever a point where Ange might have got sacked? Do you think that chucking Romero and Van der Ven against Chelsea in December was a Hail Mary?
I think so.
Yeah.
It was 3 days after he'd had the bust up with the fans at Bournemouth. And it's quite a strange thing to do, to throw 2 players in the same position.
Our two most important.
Yeah,
as
that
well.
have both been out for 2 to 3 months. That struck me as a
Desperate.
desperate move.
But he didn't get sacked. We lost and he stayed.
Yeah, and
was
they
there like
both got injured. So everything that went wrong could have gone wrong, did go wrong, and he still didn't get sacked. So I don't know.
How close as a fan base did we feel? Did you ever feel we were like, he's gone? Like, I know there was the Europa League games, but I mean,
Tamworth.
from sort of
Tamworth.
December to February before the Europa League came back.
There were no Everton away was
Yeah.
low,
Yeah,
was
Everton
low.
away
Yeah.
was
Was
very.
that
they're not-
similar? Was that around the Tamworth game? I think it was a week before.
It was a week.
After.
It was
After.
very. They're not playing for the managers kind of vibes, weren't it?
Chelsea and Liverpool at home in December, I thought were just disgusting performances.
There were. You were surprised Monday you didn't hear the news. You didn't see the corner flag picture on Twitter. Club statement.
Leicester and Everton, that consecutive Sundays, I thought, I don't know.
Leicester, but
Do you know what I think? If we lost 5-0 at Everton, he would have gone.
we got back to 3-2, didn't
The
we?
fact that it was 3-2 was this whole 1-goal defeat kind of thing that was going on for a while.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
genuinely believe if we'd lost 4 or 5-0, we would have gone on Monday morning.
But when I look back at all those games where I thought Monday's gone, maybe they did just have a discussion. We were still in both.
Maybe
we
they were always giving
But we were in
Europe.
3 competitions at that point, and they were just like, go and win something, go and
But
win
even
something.
so, the first leg, that I know like everyone thought if we go out of the League Cup, if we sat, the first leg almost felt like it gave him beyond the second leg, even if we went out, because it was like, oh, we can beat Liverpool, they're still playing for him.
Were we still? Did Villa come after Liverpool?
Yeah, Villa was the Sunday
days
after
after.
So we
Liverpool.
were always just still in something. I think if we'd lost
Yeah.
to Ipswich away,
But then after
he
Villa, it
might
was
have
like
gone.
players were coming back. There was always
There's always-
something
There's always
that kept
something.
him. And then it was just like, well, it's Europe or bust now. fair play to him for navigating his way to the end of the season.
Yeah.
I thought there was no chance.
I do, again, this is possibly going to piss people off. I do think any manager worth their salt would have got us to that Europa League final. But he did it. Plenty of managers have not
Tottenham
navigated.
managers.
Have not navigated us there. But all the managers we talk about, I don't want this one,
Again.
Frank. I think Thomas Frank will probably have steered us to the final. I don't know if he'd have won it. I don't know. I don't think it was the toughest Europa League.
But we've been knocked out by much worse teams than we've played. Under Poch, under Mourinho. It's easy to say now, we got, I know that the level of teams weren't that great, but he still did it. You still got to go and do it.
100%.
No one else did it before him.
100%.
And the weight of expectation as well.
Yeah,
and
the
the pressure, how heavy that Tottenham shirt must be in cup competitions.
Yeah.
We've never had more pressure than those Europa League
No.
knockout games that I can remember for years. We were under more pressure than perhaps ever in my
Not
life.
only did we have the 17 years, we also had the 17th league position.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. All right. Maybe Thomas Frank wouldn't have got us there. Okay. So you're no further down the road on the engine. You weren't here last week, Jake, when we did our last live show of the season. I'm going to ask you the big question.
Do I want him to go or not, or do I think he will?
Both.
I feel like I'm so relaxed after last week. If he goes, fine. Hopefully we'll get someone in better. If he stays, I'll be fully behind him. But he probably should still go. But it does worry me what it would do for the vibe in the camp and in the fan base.
It's an incredible
And
situation.
it also worries me because I don't want Thomas Frank.
No,
I just think if you replace Ange with Frank, what is the point? Because if you back Ange and we've got a fully fit squad, I would prefer Ange to be our manager than Thomas Frank. And that's what worries me. I don't know who else is there. If we can get Glasner, go get Ollie Glasner. Apart from that, no one really excites me, apart from Poch.
Inzaghi.
We'll see
How
they
realistic
do.
is that?
Him and Paratici are thick as thieves, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Inzaghi's going to
Inzaghi's going to be
leave
our manager
Inter and come to Spurs.
and he's going to win a trophy against Inter Milan in the first game. That's Tottenham manager.
Yeah, I agree with you. For all that I've said, if you get rid of him for a Marco Silva
What is
or
the
a Thomas
point?
Frank, there's
What
no
is
point.
the point?
Glasner I would be here for. Inzaghi's a real risk. He's never
Do
managed
we
in
know
the
loads
Premier
about
League.
Inzaghi? I
No,
know he's doing
exactly.
well with Inter.
Exactly.
Has anyone
No.
even watched Inter Milan apart from that wild two-legged game against Barcelona, which was like Ange bought his
Yeah,
best?
I've worked on a bit of Serie A this season. They're a good side. He's managed to build, which won't help him here. He's got two squads. I mean, when they played Arsenal in the Champions League, he basically played his B team, and it was still
Yeah,
a
I
really
know.
strong team. They've got a lot of good players. Not going to happen here. I don't think he'll be our manager next season. In fact, I think Postecoglou will be our manager next season. And I know people get behind him. I'll be behind him. I've renewed my season ticket. I'll be there, shouting at the good and shouting at the bad. And I really, really, really want it to work. Keep him fit. Fine. Maybe this season was all about, as he said, the only thing that will do wonders for this club is winning a trophy. Fourth, fifth doesn't get you anywhere. And he was right, and he said it, and he's done it. So he said he'll get us back into the top 6 next season. Maybe he will go and do it, and I'll sit here and I'll eat humble pie and say, what a great manager. He's got us a trophy, and then he's delivered again.
We need to know as soon as possible.
We need to know.
For
soon
his
as possible.
sake,
We
for the
should know
club's
by
sake,
now.
for the fans' sake, we should know. We should know now. They have to Levy has to make a statement, even
Well,
if he stays.
I wonder whether
Because I
we-
know he's under contract, but you have to. That I don't know. Maybe they give him do what Ten Hag did. They give him a new deal. Levy has to release a statement and show Ange that despite this poor league campaign, he's won us a trophy, and we are going to back him and get behind him, and he's
Yeah.
going to be our manager next season.
I've talked about that door and that door. The problem is now, if Ange went through that door because we'd lost the Europa League final, you open that door and there's that set of managers. Now we've won the Europa League, you open the door, there's actually a different set of managers standing behind that door that we could get.
I don't think there is, though.
But maybe the targets have changed because we've won the Europa League.
I don't think there's that many more. I don't think being in the Champions League changes our managerial pool that much, because I just don't think there's that many out there.
If the Inzaghi, I wouldn't even call it a rumour, potential.
Maybe Inzaghi, maybe
He
a
ain't coming if
Xavi.
we,
but
he ain't
do
coming
we
if we
want
lose
Xavi?
last. No, I don't want Xavi.
You know,
if we'd
we've got
lost the
enough centre
final,
midfielders.
if we'd lost, if we'd lost the final last week, we wouldn't be getting Inzaghi.
But we need a decision, all the fans, because we don't want this massive high we're on going into the summer to quickly drown out when we're in the middle of June, and we get what we had with the Nuno season, where we then end up sacking him, and then we might take forever to replace him.
How big is dressing room unity? Massive, obviously. Coming into a winning dressing room makes a massive difference. Obviously, the the sliding doors moment for this club is huge. Don Hutchison said on air as well, and to me personally, you play for yourself, you do play for the badge. And I once said to him, do players ever get asked if a manager should stay or go? He said, I've never won in the
they all did this week.
Well, and they all did.
They all said yes.
Can we keep him on dressing room vibes?
I don't know how important it is.
No.
Like, it would be trite of us to sit around here and try and pretend that we know how important the vibes in the dressing room are, because we've not lived through it. And that's a question for a player. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm anywhere near qualified enough to answer it.
But how if he did go and a couple of players were, I'm going to leave now because he's gone.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if Romero is out the door with Postecoglou,
is that enough reason to keep Ange Postecoglou?
Maybe it is. It depends how. That's again a personal.
Yeah.
It's a personal thing.
Okay.
But we need a decision.
We need a decision.
Just a bit. I think we will. I think by the end of next week we know either way, because that would be 2.5 weeks after the final. You know.
Okay. I'm not going to make you grade Daniel Levy.
Said.
Hire the manager that won us a trophy, A+. All right, Adam, Jake, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
This is probably our last big show this season. If there's some big transfers or some big news with the manager, we'll be back. We'll do a special show. As I said last week, thank you to everyone who's been on this season. Adam Nathan, Jake Saunders, Jake Robson, James Robbins, who I actually missed out on the thank yous last week by mistake, but here I am. Thank you, James Robbins, Gary Diamond, Ali Tweedale, Ollie Spiro, David Sims, all our guests, especially everyone here, the boys and girls at Launchboard Studio. We'll be back, who knows when. We'll see you soon, and up the Spurs.